of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The secretary note the roll, and then I'll take a motion for the minutes. And note that there's a mistake that staff pointed out where a line has been repeated twice, so whatever motion I would ask to reflect that change.
I make a motion that we approve the minutes as amended.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Any public comments on items that are not on today's agenda? Those are ex parte communications. Here's microphone. Old business, there's none. I'm looking at the wrong one. All right. I'm actually going to take the second agenda item first, if nobody on the commission minds, so let's get that one out of the way. So I'm going to open the public hearing for case 135000011.
Chairman, Commissioners, thank you. This is a preliminary plat for a parcel in Gulf Village up in Estrella. And this is Golf Club Drive here. To the north of that is West Star. Surrounding this parcel is existing development within Estrella. You've got an existing residential golf course and a proposed subdivision there to the west. This is an illustrative plan of the preliminary plat showing the street layout, the lots, the open space areas, and the surrounding area. Parcel's 28.1 acres, 61 single-family lots are proposed in the subdivision. Gives us a density of a little over 2 units per acre. 16.5 acres of open space are proposed. It's about 58%. That includes the area within the utility easements, the open space areas for use by the residents. The main open space area is going to be located in the center, basically, of the subdivision right here. That's where you'll have a pool and lawn facility there. This is the preliminary plat itself, the cover sheet. What's proposed in this subdivision is basically a townhome or condo type project. You'll have 3 homes attached. With this picture, what they're proposing, you'll have, this is a 3-home building. You'll have, oh, here's the front. 1 home here, another one in the middle, and another one here on the end. So the 2 homes on the ends are single-story. The one in the middle will be 2-story. Basically, the look that they were trying to achieve was making it look like one house versus 3 separate units together. And this is the proposed floor plan showing the 3 units and the shared walls between the units. This is the upstairs for the single or the 2-story unit. And this is just an example of the 3 homes in a row and the 2 homes in a row, basically how that lot will function, with each lot having private yard space, its own garage, with space in the driveway for visitors. Staff has, we've reviewed this against the PAD with our subregs. We do find it consistent with both of those items. We are recommending approval subject to the steps in the staff report. With that, staff's available for questions. The applicant from Rosewood Homes is also here for any questions.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody have any questions for Steve? Okay, thank you. Would the applicant like to speak? Anybody have questions for the applicant?
I'll just briefly
Okay.
speak. Sure. My name is David Kitnick. I'm the principal owner of Rosewood Homes. Been building homes for 28 years, including here in Goodyear for many years as well. This property has, somewhat of a history on it. There was a previous builder who had proposed 86 units on it, and that was in a condominium ownership. That builder lost the property when the downturn hit, and we purchased the property, and we tried to improve it. We reduced the number of units from 86 to 61. As Steve mentioned, we have duplexes and triplexes. The previous builder had duplexes, triplexes, and fourplexes. The fourplexes we just thought were too massive. We also obviously increased the amount of open space, and we have a lot of enhanced landscaping. Really think it's going to be a nice, very nice neighborhood. And we designed it also as individual fee simple lots. So although it's attached legally, they will live and be platted as individual fee simple 61 because the property line goes right through the enhanced common wall between each of the units. So I'm happy to answer some other questions as well if you have.
Thank you. Any questions for the applicant? Commissioner Short?
Could you give us a feel for the square footage within these different individual units, and also, if you can, if it's timed something in terms of the price range for them?
Yeah, in terms of the square footages, they range from 1,900 to the largest one, the unit. It's a partial two-story. It really lives as a single story with a master down. There's some footage upstairs for guests and all, or for older children. That's about 2,675 square feet. So 1,900 to 2,675. The homes that we build tend to be more expensive than typical homes. Wherever we build, we just grand opened a neighborhood last weekend in North Scottsdale. The homes are larger and larger lots and all, but our average sales price there is over $1 million. We just finished selling a neighborhood just south of Camelback Road, kind of in the Biltmore Arcadia area. They were small lots. And relatively similar size homes. Average sales price there, because of that location, so much of it's always location, was $600,000. Here, of course, the homes don't sell for quite as much. Very tough to predict where it's going to be when we're selling, a couple of years from now. But every indication we have is the market stabilized, things are improving. We're quite hopeful that, most of our homes here will be in the 300s. Obviously there are going to be opportunities to upgrade the homes and lot premiums, but very difficult to predict what the market's going to bear. But our homes always have standard granite countertops and, a lot of nice amenities, and they tend to be among the most energy efficient in the marketplace. Most of new homes nowadays get an independent inspection. It's called a HERS rating, and it tells you how energy efficient your home is versus current building code requirements. Most of our homes meet the Environments for Living's highest standard. It's their diamond level, so not silver or gold level, platinum. Most of our homes in our other neighborhoods meet the highest level, the diamond level. we haven't had these homes, we haven't done the construction documents yet, and they haven't been independently inspected, but if they were like most of our similar homes, they'll have HERS ratings in the 60s, which would mean, if it was a 60, it would mean that the home would be 40% more energy efficient than current building code requirements. So, they're beautiful looking homes, they're well built. We do a number of things above and beyond code. As an example, we screw our drywall, we use structurally reinforced post-tension foundation systems. There's just a number of things that make them a better built home, a good looking home, and also super energy efficient.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Great, thank you.
Is there anybody from the public who wishes to speak on this item? I don't have any cards, so. Okay. And commission discussion, any? Just note that I think it's a really good project. So with that, I'll take a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve case number 13-500-00011.
Okay, we have a motion and a second.
Second.
Second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries. With that, we'll move on to item number 7.1, the general plan review mock zoning cases. Please.
Thank you, Chairman and members of the Commission. As you remember, we started last month and then we continued the item, but I'll go ahead and start again and just ask, you've had a chance to look through the general plan. Are there any general questions, comments, concerns you want to talk about before I go through the mock cases? All right, seeing none, I'll move on. The first thing I want to start with is our current process that we're using today. I know I've gone through this several times, but we're familiar with the current general plan, which has many land use categories. And when we go through rezoning, which we just did last month, and I'll just use an example. We recently had a large PED, Callisto and Estrella, go through the process. We really focus on the land use map and not necessarily the policies that are in the general plan. So if you looked at the staff report for this, and it's a really great staff report. It follows, I'm picking on it, but so thank you, Steve, for being a good support. But what we currently focus now is on the land use map. So this is a 12-page staff report. Here's a little bit about how the general plan history, and it's just talking about what the designation on the land use map is. When we get to the section where it talks about the areas we review zoning ordinances for, and the first one is consistency with the general plan, that focuses on the land use map, and this is typical for all the cases we do. And so that's what we want to do is change the discussion to not, does it meet the map color? Check. But actually, is this development good? Is it something that's going to benefit the community? And especially since so many characteristics can change over time, when you get really parcel specific with the land use map, it can kind of lock you into a certain land use instead of giving you the flexibility to work with the market conditions or as things change. Now, the Callisto PED book actually did a really great job and went through some of the policies in the general plan and how it conformed to those policies. And that's the kind of stuff we actually want to see, is how does the proposed zoning forward the vision for the community, not just fit the land use map. And just to give you an idea, in the general plan, the 2003 current general plan, there is a list of what we look for a general plan amendment. And it is really similar to what we look for a zoning amendment too. So by pushing more items into the zoning process rather than the general plan amendment process, we're not necessarily losing that review ability that the commission and council would have. It's just the process that we use to do that. So we're still looking at infrastructure and impacts to the surrounding area. The key thing is that first one, consistency of the general plan. We're not just going to look at does it meet the map, but does it meet the standards that went into the map. And it's important, a lot of the standards we came up with, it's things that the planning staff uses. It just necessarily wasn't written down. Now it's written down, so it's clear to the development community what's important to us as a community, what we see as good planning, so they know right from the start what we're going to be looking for when they submit plans. So that's kind of why we came up with this mock case, so that we could go through testing let's make sure this general plan is working how we think it's going to work, and hopefully we can learn from it. And I just want to, I know I put it on the reports, but for the record, I just want to say again, these are all mock cases. Some of the information might not add up. I made up some of the background information just so we could test it and see what it's like, so it's not necessarily accurate information. But let's look at the property that's at the southeast corner of Yuma Road and Saraville Avenue. It's catty corner from the Fry's Marketplace, right next to the fire station, and pretend that we've had a submittal for a rezoning to rezone that area from agricultural to general commercial. So we look at the general plan land use map and its neighborhoods. This is a commercial center, it's 25 acres, it's going to include a small grocery store, retail, and even a little senior center. So here's the site plan we got with the rezone, and you can see it's a small grocery store, retail, they're going to have a senior living component in it. So what we do at this point is we did check the map, we saw that it was neighborhoods, but then that's when we move on to the standards, and these standards are in the mock case file too, because I know this is a lot to read on a screen. And so this one tells us where neighborhood commercial can go in the neighborhoods category. And it's saying that, well, if it's 20 acres or less, that's typically a neighborhood commercial. But really, you can go above 20 acres. We'll give a little flexibility if the uses that are proposed fit the neighborhood. And as the staff report says, well, a grocery store fits a neighborhood, a senior center is quasi-residential, quasi-commercial, that fits. So if we stipulate them to the site plan that is submitted, this would fit the general plan. This makes a lot of sense. We'd also look at, there's a standard about connections, and we looked at the site plan, and there was a lot of connectivity, so that fits, too. And so that's how we'd use it, and that's how we change what we think zoning cases would look like, and you could see the staff report where there's a little more analysis of looking at how they plan the center. We think it does or does not fit the general plan, because that's what we were hearing from the general plan committee, and there are 3 members of the general plan committee behind me, is that we're okay with certain uses, we're okay with a little more density, we're okay with, commercial maybe being right by us, if it's designed correctly, that design matters. And so we want to look at these standards and look at how it's designed, and that's really going to tell us if something conforms to the vision we have for the community. Just some examples, a big box store wouldn't be fitting in the neighborhood commercial. So if we saw a site plan like this, we'd say there's no pedestrian connectivity, it's a sea of parking, how does this fit a neighborhood area? This wouldn't conform. We might see something, there's a big old drive-through, it's a smaller area, but they designed the site a little wrong. This might work if they designed the site a little bit differently, made the pedestrian connections a little better so they don't have to walk across drive-throughs. So this is something that might work if they designed it a little differently. The sites matter too. So the empty spot right at the entrance to Pebble Creek, that's fully surrounded by single-family residential. We're going to critique that area a little more because it's surrounded by residential, compared to maybe this site on Cotton Lane and Van Buren, which is right next to high density and is on a major commercial corridor. It's the future Loop 303. We might be a little more flexible on this site with the neighborhood commercial. So basically, that's the point of the general plan, is to provide that flexibility and actually give more control to the Planning Commission to make decisions as they make sense, site-specific and development-specific. We also looked at this too, how this might work with a large PED, since we see a lot of PEDs. So we got a PED in for a southern area of Goodyear. It might look a little familiar to some of you. So the zoning's ag, we've got a PED in, it's a mix of uses, it's about 2,000 acres and 7,000 dwelling units. So again, we are going to look at the general plan land use map, and you can see there's 3 different land uses: open space, neighborhoods, and the scenic neighborhoods. We look at their development plan and it fits. You can see there's that open space in the northern part, it's mostly neighborhoods, and they have rural residential in that southern part. And again, at that point then, we go to the standards and say, how is this designed? Is it designed correctly? So this is the scenic neighborhoods, and it's talking about how we have a baseline of 1 dwelling unit per acre, but there are instances in when you can increase it. This one, they wanted to increase it from 1 to, I think, 1.2 dwelling units per acre. And we'd say, that's okay because they gave us more open space. They did provide some additional protection. And again, that would be up to us depending on how much they wanted to increase it. They better provide more open space or better design characteristics. We'd look at the high-density residential again. So it's saying that those high-density residential needs to be near arterials and corridors, commercial areas, open spaces. So we look through the development plan and check every high-density residential area and make sure it conforms to that standard. They also talk about high-density residential being separated from low-density residential. So we'd make sure the development standards in the PED have that standard and have some kind of regulation making sure they fit that. This is the neighborhood commercial again, like we just saw. So again, we go through every neighborhood commercial piece they're proposing and make sure it conforms. And again, we look, the connections was really important in the general plan, so we'd make sure there's good connectivity between all these sites. And that through that, that's how we would determine if this development plan meets the standards. And so the purpose is, and what our hope is that it really starts changing the conversation to, yes, it conforms to this map we made, to, do we like this? Is this what we envisioned? And we hope it creates better discussions and, like I said, really lets the development community know from the very start what we expect to see in the city of Goodyear. So that's my presentation on the mock cases. So I'd be happy to take any questions you have on it. Reactions, thoughts?
Are there any questions?
Mr. Chairman, Katie, my question is what, I mean, I like the concept that you're talking about, and it seems that there adds flexibility there to really change projects that maybe didn't fit before. What is the kind of general consensus from staff, and then what's kind of the consensus from the development community as far as, do they like this approach? Have you heard any of that feedback yet or not?
Thank you, Commissioner Bray. That is a great question. Well, staff has been working on it, and staff brought this proposal forward. There are a handful of communities in the valley that are going to this similar concept, so it is something new we're seeing. Of course, we do have our own concerns. That's why we've been reviewing it ourselves. There's no perfect system. We know that there might be problems with this, just like there's problems with the old way, but I talked to the city of Chandler has had a land use plan like this for many years, I think at least 15 years, and they've said it's really worked well for them, and so we've had some really good discussions with them. The city of Casa Grande also went to something like this. So we've been able to talk with those other staff members and hopefully work out the problems. You know, we heard what problems they've had, so we've tried to address those, so hopefully we won't have those same problems. We have talked to members of the development community. There are 2 members of the development community represented on the general plan committee. And then we've also talked to the major property owners. We've talked to Newland, Sun MP, Sunbelt, and they've all been very amenable to this because they see that they can get a little flexibility. So when they go through zoning, they won't have to go through 2 processes of a general plan amendment and a rezoning when they want to rezone a property. So they see the ability for flexibility, while we at the same time then get a little more control on how the development is designed. So it's a give and take. So far I've heard very positive things from the development community. To be honest, I am concerned some of the smaller developers who might own smaller pieces of land, it could affect them a little more because it's harder with the smaller pieces, but I haven't heard too many comments from them yet. But it's been out for 60-day review, so it's out there.
Explain in further detail, if you would, about how you think the smaller landowner might be impacted.
Mostly, and some of it's going to be due to some, problems they would have in the current process too, but infrastructure planning can be a challenge when you're a very small piece. So when you're trying to justify going to a certain zoning, it can be difficult to show all that infrastructure planning, where when you're showing it on the general plan as commercial, you feel you have, okay, I know I'm going to get commercial even though I don't have my zoning yet. You kind of have that planning, but right now we're going to show that as neighborhoods, and they're not going to be able to rezone that until they have infrastructure planning in place. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So they don't have anything on a map saying this makes sense as a commercial. So,
How does it work, the mechanics of the Planning and Zoning Commission? You mentioned that we'd have more input on the site plans and stuff like that, and how does that interplay with the, the application process, and where would we actually inject some of our input versus just approving the cases and then sending them on to the city council?
Thank you, Chairman Peters. The process would actually be the same. I mean, the staff would be reviewing it, then we'd be bringing it to you with our recommendations. Where you'd have more control is through the general plan. So if there's items that you think are really important to design, we need to make sure that those are in the general plan so that staff has that direction to take that to the applicant. And so that's where we'd have more control. And then also, it will be in the interpretation of the standards too. So when it talks about buffering, high-density residential being buffered from low-density residential, one thing we are going to do as we move forward is probably do some zoning ordinance amendments to clarify some of that. So the general plan just talks about we need buffering, where the zoning ordinance is going to say it needs to be this wide, or, include trees, or be a road, it's going to get more detailed. And so definitely those zoning ordinance amendments will be coming to the commission, and we'll be getting your input on defining what something like that means. So you'll have input into, you'll be helping us create those standards, and then staff will be implementing them.
Any other questions?
I have a question. How long does a typical zone change take to go through our system?
That's funny, we keep having these discussions. Right now, we're creating plan review times, and we talk about it. It can depend whether it's a PAD or a hard zone, but, it's going to take at least 6 months.
6 months is kind of our
Does that sound
average.
good? What do you want to add to that?
I think that's probably a fair characterization. The thing you have to keep in mind is in the rezoning process, there's the public process that we go through. And for example, for the meeting for the Planning and Zoning Commission, we have to publish notice on a rezoning 15 days, at least 15 days prior to the commission meeting. And that has to get to the paper a week before that date. And so you have these time constraints in effect built in. In the recent change to the zoning ordinance, to the city attorney's office indicated that they felt that if any case going to them, rezoning case going to them, might have involved changes to stipulations, then that should also be done with a public hearing. And so we're in a situation now where we publish for the city council meeting as well. So we end up with 2 publication cycles. And in advance of all that, there's the initial staff review where we review the case to try to point out any fatal flaws or suggestions to make it go through the process smoother than otherwise. And then there's also the citizen review. And the citizen review, we have a little more flexibility in that. We have the ability to provide public notice of the case having been submitted and going through the process, either through posting the property, mail notices to adjoining property owners, or publication in the paper, or any one or all of those methods. And so if we feel that it's serious enough that we should publish, then you got the 15-day notice again in front of that meeting. So there's effectively like 3 months that's committed to that part of the public process, and then add to that whatever staff reviews involved. So that's why it tends to stretch out to as much as 6 months. I think on the short end, it's probably closer to 4 months. And there are instances, if we figure it's non-controversial, there's ways to compress the publications so that when you publish for the P&Z, you're actually publishing for a council meeting, so you know what meeting, if you know what meeting it's going to go to. But then we have internal policies that say public hearing should be on the second council meeting of the month, not the first council meeting of the month. So that's the full disclosure of why it takes as long as it takes.
If it's a typical design review where it's in compliance, then it's like a, about 3-month process to go to staff, go to planning, go to council. Does that sound about right?
I think we've touted the fact that when we have to, or when we feel like it's appropriate, we can get it done within a month or 2 months. We can compress it enough. But that, again, we reserve those to the ones that are not controversial, obviously, because we don't want to look like we're just running something through the process. But if it's not controversial, yes, it could be shortened to as little as a month or 2.
Our process does have an allowance for very small things or extremely compliant things for just staff approval, correct?
That's true. We're talking about rezonings in this case. We're not talking about when you bring in a site plan for review that's in conformance with the zoning. That is more straightforward. It doesn't have a public process attached to it.
And, I don't know if this is going to get at, why you're bringing it up, but our hope is that this process will, and not just the general plan alone, but everything we're trying to do will help increase these processes. Right now, the current process is when we get a rezone, especially a PED, there's a lot of back and forth between the city and the applicant. They submit and we say, you're missing this, this, and this, try again. They submit again, try again, and that can take the staff review a long time. And so starting with the general plan, we're trying to create clarity. So now here's the standards, and look, here's some pictures of developments that meet these standards. So now you know exactly what we're trying to do. And then we're taking the design guidelines and doing the same thing and making those more clear. And we're going to do the same thing with the zoning ordinance. So we're hoping holistically all those things that when a developer starts looking at those documents, they know exactly what they need to do. And hopefully then we can start getting down to one review. They submit, maybe there's a few typos and a few minor things, and we can just say, let's move on to the public process. That's the hope, that's the goal. And like I said, it's going to take a lot of the things we're trying to improve to get to there, but it really starts with the general plan.
Also, Mr. Chairman, just to add to the comment, also at the same time, we're trying to create some kind of information documents, like brochures, and then provide that information out to the public. We're working in a one-stop shop principle on the development services. And that information about turnaround time is going to be also explained in a simple ways. That your question was asking about how long it takes. That's also going to be including brochures. If it's a rezoning category, how long it takes from beginning all the way to the end. If it's a site plan review, also how many days it's going to take us to go through the process. So, general plan amendment, design guidelines, zoning ordinance amendments, and also make it more clear to the public. When they come to the city and apply for something, they should have a very good understanding what to do from day one. That's our intent right now, too.
I guess what I'm getting at is, I understand we want to protect our community and what our community looks like and how it operates, which is why we're all here. But I'm just curious if there are any, new ideas or philosophies or concepts to speed up the process. Because, even just the design review can go, 3 months before a property owner can get started. In the electronic age, are there ways that we can speed up this process without robbing the community of their chance to see what's going on and provide input? And I don't have any ideas per se, but, you're plugged into the industry, so maybe if there are some new ideas out there, this is the time to talk about them.
And to that point, can you provide any insight on what some of the developers, what some of the criticisms or, comments or celebrations that they've had over the Goodyear process and, what we can do to improve? Can you share any of those comments that they've had on the...
One really interesting comment I got from some of the developers was that I just keep saying and I've grabbed onto is they've said that Goodyear, is a very high-quality community, and we're in a position where we can really raise the bar of what we expect from development. All we have to do is be clear about what we expect and then reward people who do that. When they come into the door, showing us what they expect, get them through the process fast, and help them through, save time and money. And so, absolutely, that's what we're trying to do, is figure out ways to do that. And so, on the flip side, I think they're making that comment because maybe we haven't been quite as clear in our documents of what we expect, where it's so easy for anyone to pick up these documents and know, if I design the project this way, I'm going to get through the process like that. So that's why we're looking at our documents right now and saying, how can we clarify? So it's not necessarily changing the policies in them, it's just trying to bring them to the forefront and making them more clear and obvious, and just easy to understand, easy to enforce for everybody. And because we feel the same way. I mean, we don't want to spend our time going through review and review and review. We definitely want to help the development community get through the process quickly, and this is one way to do that. I mean, by some of these that used to have to do a general plan amendment at the same time as a rezone, and it's, how does that help when they're going concurrently? How does that help us all to just have two applications? It just costs the developer more money and time to create that general plan amendment package when we can review the development in the same way through just the zoning package. So that alone, we hope, is a way that, it's not necessarily going to save, time in the citizen review process, but it will save them time and money in creating those documents that they need to review. And it'll save staff time because we'll have one less document to review when we see rezoning cases. So that's one easy way we can point to that we're going to be making the process faster. But absolutely, I mean, Sherry, the Director in Development Services, has been charged with that very task of how can we make this easier and clearer for the development community. So we're working on it, and if you do have ideas, absolutely let us know.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I do want to just remind everyone, too, that we will have the first public hearing on this item at our next meeting in April. And we are required to hold an off-site meeting, so that April meeting is going to be held at the Estrella Star Point Residence Club. And I'm sure we'll give you more reminders as we get closer to that, but I just wanted to remind everybody about that public hearing's coming up. I also wanted to let everyone know that the last General Plan Committee meeting is going to be held next Tuesday in this room, starting at 6:30, and you're all more than welcome to come and celebrate all the hard work of the General Plan Committee if you like. We'll be serving dinner, and I'll send you an email about that reminding you as well, but I wanted to let you know about that too. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Great work, and great work to the committee, and
Absolutely.
to express our gratitude to them on all the hours that they put in, and you certainly put in a lot of time. And I was commenting earlier, I was at a lunch today, and someone at my table actually commented on the Goodyear general plan work that's being done, and said Katie's name, and this is somebody completely outside of the my normal world. And so it was really cool to get those compliments. I just wanted to express that to you. So.
I added it up. It's over 2,000 hours that the General Plan Committee has given the city on this project. A lot.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to echo the same remarks as far as the work that Katie's done on the project. She's been fantastic on it, and really have stayed with it through the whole course of it. And Katie, would you like to recognize the committee members who are in attendance tonight?
That's a great idea. Thank you. The members who are here are Dave Moriucci, Ted Ingalls, and Peter Fine. So thank you all for being here.
Thank you for your work. All right, and with that, are there any more comments or questions? Okay. Item number 9, staff communications.
Mr. Chairman, the only item that I have, maybe you also can add to this, just to remind you, on March 31st, we're going to have the City Council and Planning Commission joint work session. It's going to be on this place right here on March 31st at 4:30 p.m.
Okay. I plan to be there.
There was a question earlier in the meeting about the Avalon rezoning case, and that's been rescheduled for April 28th City Council meeting. So it was going to go on the 31st, but it's not. It's been postponed to the April 28th meeting, so it won't be on the same evening.
Thank you. And with that, unless there's any other business, we're going to adjourn.